What's cracking YouTube? Today we are going to dive into Section 8 versus co-living. Section 8 and co-living are both affordable housing strategies. I believe they have huge life ahead of them in the space of real estate investing. And I think for cash flow, they're both incredibly good strategies. However, you've never really heard me talk about investing in Section 8 rentals, and there's a reason for it. The reason being is I am doubling down on the co-living model. The reason that I'm doubling down on it is because I can turn one single family home and turn it into a small multi-family property. I can't do that with Section 8, but there's a number of other reasons beyond just the fact that there's greater cash flow in the co-living model. So today what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna dive into Section 8 versus co-living. I'm going to talk to you guys about what I think is great about Section 8 and what I think is great about co-living, and then you can decide for yourselves whether or not you want to be an investor in the Section 8 model or the co-living model. So let's dive into it. All right, so Section 8 is a government program that allows for people that are low income to live in single family homes. Now, the government subsidizes Section 8 rentals, and that means that your rent is guaranteed. And this is a huge benefit for people. They feel that if the government is going to guarantee my rent payment, then I never have to worry that I'm gonna have a month where I can't make my mortgage, where there's going to be some economic problem or like something like COVID where people just can't pay because they can't go to work. The Section 8 really insulates you from that type of a situation. But on the flip side of that, because it is a government program, it is ripe with regulation. Now, every year when you have a Section 8 property, an inspector needs to come out and they need to inspect the property. And when a lot of people say that Section 8 rentals are kind of, slumlordy or like they're totally run down, that's actually not true. Because the government comes and inspects these properties, they've typically got to be kept in pretty good condition. They come and look at the condition of the property, they look at the flooring, they look at all of the trim, they look at anything that could be loose. They really want to make sure that there's no liability, that they have maintained the integrity of the property, and that you're providing a good rental unit to one of their clients. And so for that reason, I think inspections are a good thing, but sometimes they can get a little heavy-handed. And some of the regulations are just a little bit nonsensical to me. And so for that reason, I don't necessarily love the regulations. I don't love having to have an inspector come out every single year to come out and look at the property to reapprove my Section 8 voucher. And that to me is just an added headache, an added piece of red tape. And so I prefer the private sector. Another thing that Section 8 has is the rents are capped. They only will give you so much for a 1-bedroom, 2-bedroom, 3-bedroom, 4-bedroom, whatever the size of your property is. And because of that, there's not a lot of opportunity for growth. You're not making money per room. There's no way for you to charge for extra things in the home. And so how much money you can make on a Section 8 property is pretty much capped. You're gonna get X number of dollars. They're guaranteed dollars if you make sure that you are actually passing the inspections, but they are capped. And for me as a capitalist, I love to see an opportunity to add value and make more. You can't do that with Section 8. The next thing that Section 8 offers is that it does provide housing for low-income families. I love the fact that our vulnerable and underserved demographics have an opportunity to live in a nice single-family home. And for me, that's a huge benefit for Section 8. But with that comes a stigma. If you've ever heard of people making fun of folks who live in Section 8 because they're low income, I remember when I was growing up as a kid, that was kind of one of those things that kids would say to each other, oh, you live in Section 8, la, 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 la. It was just like, kind of a scarlet letter, if you will, on your family's economics. And there is a stigma attached to Section 8 properties. When I buy real estate and they disclose that it was a Section 8 rental, these houses typically sell for less. And again, the stigma attached to it really doesn't make any sense, because it's not that the people living in there are not high quality or destroying the home. It doesn't mean that you're a slumlord. In fact, you're the exact opposite. And so the stigma actually isn't rooted in truth, but like many things that are stereotypes or stigmas, they're really just there as a way for people to marginalize and kind of stereotype one specific group of people. I don't necessarily buy into it, but it is there. There is a stigma attached to Section 8, and that stigma, it follows the home. The next thing that you can expect for Section 8 rentals is an average return. So Section 8 won't overpay, Section 8 doesn't underpay, Section 8 just pays. It pays the average amount for that type of property, and that's okay. But if you're like me and you're an investor, you're looking for above average, right? Because we are go-getters. We're shooting for the stars. We want more. And I would way rather have an above average return opportunity. And so for me, the Section 8 model just didn't make sense. Now, how does this stack up with co-living? Well, as we talked about, co-living is the private sector, meaning that I don't have any government regulation. I have no red tape. I have no inspections. I have no oversight. Now, of course, that means that I am opening myself up to some liabilities if somebody gets hurt or whatnot, but I get to decide. I get to decide what type of improvements I want to make. I get to decide everything. If I want to have a specific type of tub, if I don't want to have a handle rail in my bathroom, if I want to have a door a certain amount of size, it's my prerogative. I get to decide. And if I want to make an investment and spend money in improving this property, I can, but I'm not forced to do it. For me, just as a capitalist living in the United States, I love the freedom of it being in the private world. The next thing that I think is really cool about co-living is that there's no caps, meaning I can rent each room out and that rent can increase steadily week after week, month after month, year after year. And because these are housing membership agreements, I can literally increase my weekly rent based on market conditions. So if something is going on that automatically increases the demand of this type of room, well, I can actually increase my weekly rental rate. And that is good for me, right? I believe in the free market. I believe in supply and demand. I believe in the fundamentals of capitalism. And so for me, having no caps is pretty great. In addition to that, I can charge for things that I couldn't charge for in Section 8 rentals. For instance, I can charge for coin laundry. In fact, all of my co-living homes have coin-operated laundry machines in them. And at the end of every month, I go and collect my bag of quarters because that's who I am. I like my quarters, okay? But that's fun. In addition to that, I can charge for parking spaces because in co-living, there's a certain number of available parking and there's more people living in the home than there are parking spaces. The parking becomes coveted. And there's a dollar value to it. So I can charge an extra amount per week for a room that wants to have an associated parking stall. So that's added revenue. In addition to that, I can charge for storage. So I have little storage lockers in the mudrooms of my co-living homes. And if you have extra items that you want to not have in your bedroom, but you want to store somewhere outside, you can pay for additional storage. See, there's so many little different ways that I can add revenue streams in the co-living model that I can't necessarily add in Section 8. That's why I have that blended feel of a multifamily situation in a single family home. You can't do that in Section 8. The next thing that I love about co-living is that I can rent to professionals. I'm renting to people who are trying to live a minimalistic lifestyle, just like the co-working world brought in working professionals who didn't want to tie themselves to a huge lease or having to rent a big commercial space for their startup business. The same thing happens in the co-living world. Typically, these are working professionals who are trying to live a minimalistic lifestyle. They don't have a ton of things that they want to keep in their world. They just want a place to sleep, have a meal, have a shower, get some internet, do some work, and get on with their days and get on with their life. They live their lives outside. They don't live their lives in the room. And for that reason, I love the demographic that I get in my co-living homes because it doesn't create any unnecessary issues. And there's absolutely no stigma attached with working professionals living in your properties. One of the other real benefits of the co-living model for me is the community feel that we can establish in the homes. This allows for us to have added retention rates with our customers because they feel like the people that they're living with are a part of their extended family, a part of their extended community. We've seen people get together, eat dinners together. They go on social events together. They go on different excursions like hiking. They go do yoga retreats together. They meditate together. This all happens in a co-living environment. I think that's absolutely incredible, especially if you are in a certain season in life where you don't have a lot of people, or let's just say you moved into a new city and you're trying to make some new friends and you are expanding your social networks and circle. Well, the community aspect that you get in a co-living home allows for new connections, new relationships, and new friendships to be created. Now, one of the negatives of co-living, you probably weren't expecting me to give you a negative, but there are some, is the NIMBYs. What does NIMBY stand for? Not in my backyard. Now, the NIMBY DIMBYs, they came out of the woodwork for all of those short-term rentals, all of the people who were picketing, arguing with HOAs, arguing with their governors about not wanting to have higher density rental properties in their neighborhood. The NIMBYs hate co-living. They absolutely hate it because they don't like the traffic, they don't like the number of people, they don't like the cars, they just don't like the added humans in the neighborhood. And you know what? I kind of understand that. I do have a co-living home at the end of the block. I actually created the co-living environment at the end of my block. They're all my students. And so there's like a whole bunch of them living in one house. And you know what? My neighbors can because I think it's pretty cool that they live there, and I get a way better rent from those dudes living in that house. So if they don't like it in their backyard, well, guess what? It's my backyard too, and I think that it's pretty cool that they're here. So whatever. Now, the next piece that I absolutely love about the co-living model is the above average returns. So in comparison to Section 8 that just has average returns, co-living model can typically expect 3 to 4 times Section 8 rental amounts. 3 to 4 times. You can't get that in Section 8. So if you're looking for a rental strategy that is going to give you above average, exponential, beautiful returns, that is a part of the private environment, that has no caps and income, that allows you to rent affordable housing to professionals, that can establish community connections and a good feel, and really thumbs their nose at the NIMBY folks and gives you 3 to 4 times the rental rate that you would typically get from Section 8, then you should absolutely look into this model. Now, in the description, there will be a link on how you can learn more about this on an upcoming webinar that I will share with the community about how co-living has changed my life, has brought me so much financial stability, and how I want you to be a part of that as well. So if this video gave you any enjoyment, do me a favor, like this video, leave me a comment, subscribe to this channel, and I'll see you in the next one. Take care.